Am I audible? And screen is visible to all of you. Can you please confirm in the chat box? Okay, then no issues. So let's continue then. So what is it? In the last session, we were doing this about the accessing member of a class, and we have tested this. So when you are working with classes and objects, we should follow these steps. You remember, right? First, we should declare a class, and we know the syntax now. This is class name, and then variables and methods, and then and step two is creating an object. And you can see here, we know the syntax now. Class name, reference name equal to new class name. And step three is accessing members of a class, and the syntax looks like this: reference name dot member name. And we have seen few examples. And this is the example of how to access a variable: reference name dot variable name. And this is the example we did already. We did this in the last session. And after that, how to access a method: reference name dot method name. And we were able to do this like this in the last session. So methods we didn't try, sorry, we'll do that today. How to access a method means same syntax, but if it is method, we should use this parenthesis while calling these methods. And then finally, example is this c dot input. That we'll see anyhow. You can ignore it because we see with an example. And we tried testing a simple program, how to declare a variable in a class, variables in a class, and how to access them. And if you remember, we had discussed that break down your program into two classes. One for that declaring about the object like book or like car or anything, and another is a test class. You separate both from each other. In the test class, we test the object like, creating object, accessing members, all that we do in the test class. And in that specific class, like, in the other class, if it is book, we declare book specific variables and book specific methods. So like this, break down your program into two parts. One which exclusively describes about the object. One is used to test your object. Okay, so this is what we are doing here, and we had discussed this yesterday. We are declaring two classes, book and book test. Book is used to describe about book properties. Book test is a test class where we include main method to it, and test book, that is creating objects and accessing members of a class. And usually main is the starting point of execution to JVM. So this is a quick idea about what shall we say, friends, about all these fundamentals of writing a program for a class. I hope you are clear till this, right, friends? So next one, we are switching to the next topic because we have seen a program in the last class, how to declare variables and how to create object and how to access them. In today's session, what we do is we try to discuss methods and understand how to declare methods in a class and how to create a complete program both with variables and methods in a class, that we do in today's session. So what is a method here? Generally, if someone asks you what is a method or what is a function, so what's your answer, friends? What's your answer? Simply speaking, a method is a subprogram which performs a specific task. It is a small program which is used to group your code, group your statements as one unit. So in any real program, methods are very much important. You take Java, you take Python, In majority of the cases, 99.99% cases, you don't write a class without methods, except there are few scenarios where we declare only variables. Okay, only constants. In some classes, we define only constants. Only in such cases, we don't define methods. But in majority of the cases, okay, we don't have classes without methods. Next one. What is method here means we divide a large program into small parts using methods. And this approach, breaking down a big program into small parts, is what we call modularization. Okay, so we break down into modules with the help of methods in a program. And another one, methods provides code reusability. What is code reusability? Once you declare a method, you can call it any number of times. So it always avoids redundancy, code redundancy. Redundancy means repetition of code. Instead of declaring same code again and again in multiple places, if you put that code in one method, then we don't need to write again and again. If you just call that method, that is enough for us. In that way, method avoids code redundancy. Redundancy means repetition of code. And your debugging becomes easy with methods, and they optimize code. Definitely, right? When you avoid repetition of code, the length of the code obviously reduces. And also they provides readability. It's easy to understand your code when you break down your program into methods. So that's called readability. Readability means easy to understand, right? So these are all the advantages with the methods. Yeah, sorry, friends. And when we talk about methods, we break down these methods into two types. What are those two types here, friends? Default methods and parameterized. Now the question is, what is the default? So this is actually the very basic and start point of programming. So if you don't have any idea, just please keep following. So what is the default method here? Default means a method without parameters is default. Let's understand syntax first, and then we come to the point of default. So here, this is the syntax: access modifier, return type. You have to memorize this as is. Access modifier, for now you can ignore it for a while. Even if you don't use access modifier, nothing happens. This we can ignore. Okay, because by default it uses default access, but it's okay. I'll talk about it. But for now, access modifier will be there, but for now it's not needed, like public, private, protected or default. So here we don't need to declare any access for now. For some time at least, we can ignore this. But what is that? It should be syntax access modifier. First thing always should be this access, second return type, third method name, and then parenthesis, and then body. Memorize this as is. Okay. So if it is syntax in programming, not only Java syntax, any syntax, you should memorize this syntaxes as is. We don't have a choice. I hope this is clear for all of you. Right. So this is a quick idea about what is this, friends, about syntax and default method. What is default? If you see here, first thing, it's easy to remember syntax of method. See, what is method name is there, just simply method name. This is something which you provide, it can be any name. After that, parenthesis. If it is default method, in these brackets, do you see any variables? No, right? It's empty. If this method bracket is empty, it is default method. And before that, you should declare return type. I'll talk about it. Return type talks about what value this method is returning, which value this method is returning. Like, or if it is not returning at all, another important thing. So if you put void means it doesn't return anything. Instead of that, if you put some int or float or long or anything, means it's returning that specific type of value. And before that, you need access modifier, and then body is must. For example, if you see this, you can see here a simple method sum with before that the return type is void and access modifier is public, something like this. And here sum is the method name. You can give anything. It's not like it should be sum. And in the parentheses, you don't see anything. And return type is void and access modifier is public and then a body as usual. So this is syntax. Remember, we'll do a few programs. Then you understand you'll have a clear idea about methods. Today we'll get a almost a clear picture about class concept. Okay, this is an idea. So this is simple syntax example. Suppose another example. We can also simply say suppose void some M1. You can see this is the method name, opening bracer, closing bracer, some statements. And here if you see M1 is a method and this is default method. No, inside this parenthesis, no parameters. And before this, I put void. Void means it doesn't return anything. Okay, another example. And access modifier I ignored, right? You can see now. This time I didn't declare access. If you don't declare access, it's default. I'll talk about it. Then after declaring method, another important thing in this kind of OOP programming is how to call a method, how to call a default method. Syntax is simple. Reference name dot that method name. Reference name dot that method name. For example, if method is sum, you call it as that reference of class dot sum. If it is me M1, we say that s dot sum M1, something like that. So that's how we try to call a default method. Any method we call like this, that reference dot method name. Okay, so this is a quick idea about what is this, friends, about what is method and types of methods and what is default now. Let's do a small program with default methods. Suppose you take another program. Let's take a program new. I'll take some class. Okay, and then now what I want is uh, mm, let me refactor it to some test. But I'm just changing the name. Okay, some test. I'm adding test class first. So let it be like that. Now add a class sum. Now what you do, just declare two variables, int a equal to 10 and b equal to 20. Okay. Now what I need is, of course, I directly initialized for now. Maybe what we can do is, because we are talking about understanding method concept. So this is one way, right? Declare variables and initialize them in the class. But this is not always recommended way. What we should do, sometimes what is that we should do is we have to use methods to initialize variables, use methods to write logic, use methods to display your result. So here everything what you have to do, friends, everything has to be done with methods. You should use methods for everything. So what should we do? This is, if you ask me if this is wrong, I don't say it's wrong. It's okay. But more than this, using methods is the right way. Now, for example, I want to declare variables. Yes, we did. Now, to initialize these variables, I want one method. Then what do? You can see here, simply speaking, just take one method void input. Okay, data. This is one method I am creating. And this is the default method. If you see here, no parameters in this. And return type of this is void because this method doesn't return any values. This is the return type. And if you want, you can put public. For now, it's not needed. Let the access be default. Means what? If you don't declare any access modifier, the access will be default by default. By default, the access is default. Maybe if you ask me what is default access means, it is an access modifier, which is, you know, which where your members are visible throughout that package. I'll talk about it. For now, you can just ignore it. But this is default. Default means default access means what? If you declare any access modifier, then by default the access is default. Write it right. What is default means? I'll talk about it. You can remember default access is specific to a package. Means in that package you can access those members wherever you want. That is called default access. Now what I did now? I just declared my access of my method to be default for now. Okay, after this session, I'll talk about access modifiers. Then you'll get a clear picture about when should we declare default, when should it be public, when should it be private, when should it be protected. For these programs, default is enough. So I hope I'm stopping this discussion here. So this is how we should declare a default method where your method name, anything. It's not like you should put input data. You can put, say, you can say get data, or you can say set data, or it's up to you. Okay. And then a parenthesis, which this should be empty if it is default method. Now, before that, you should declare return type. Usually it is void if you don't return values. And then before that access modifier, we just allowed the access to be default for now. Now in this, what we should do? Initialize variables a equal to 10, b equal to 20. So what we are doing now? We are a method to we are using a method to initialize variables. Okay, and one method to write logic. So here I am using a method to write logic. So here what I do, void add, and then inside this, maybe if you want, you can take some variable to initialize your results in C. Okay. Okay, friends. So here adding means what? Simple. Everybody know this. What is it, friends? A C equal to A plus B. Over. This is how we add two variables. Over. So for that we need a separate method here in programming. Use a separate method. This is even add is default here. Okay, default method. Okay, you can see here. I am not using any parameterized method here. And then last one, void display or show. You can name as you like. It's up to you. Okay, opening bracer. Then system.out.println. What I am doing here, the sum is plus C. Okay. And here we are printing result. So this is how we create a program. Here what we are doing, declaring variables. So this is what sum class, this is test class. Now if you see, this is how we should create a simple method. So now we understood what is default method, and we have written a program using default methods. Now what did we do? We broke down our class into two parts, variables and methods. You can see here. The first part is variables, second part is methods. And in these variables, we just declared them, we didn't initialize them. So what we did now, to initialize a variable, we use one method. To implement logic, we used one method. And to print result, we use one method. If you see here, we are using a separate method for each operation. This is how we have to create a class. You can see here, by looking at the method itself, we can easily understand what we are doing in that code, right? So now step one is done. This is step one. We created a class. Now after this, what should we do? We should test this class. Now go to test class, add main to this, and then step two. What is step two? Create an object. How to create an object? That class namespace reference equal to new class name followed by parenthesis semicolon. So what did we do? We created an object. Okay, we created an object. Once we create an object, what is that we should do, friends? We should access members of a class, either variables or methods. But in most of the times, in majority of the cases, we don't call variables directly, but we call methods. And in the last class, we have already seen how to call variables. Now I would like to show you how to call methods. Syntax is almost same. What is that here? This reference dot method name, if it is method. If it is variable, dot variable, that's all. Now here, what we do now, which one we should call first? If our variable should be initialized with some values, then we should call this method first, and after logic method, and after print method. So that is the order you should follow. Okay. So what do you do right now? It doesn't mean that you should call all methods of a class in the same order. But in this program, one method is dependent on another method. Before you do addition, this input should be done. So input data method should be called first so that it will set A and B with some values. Okay. Similarly, once after assigning, we should do addition. So we should call logic method. Once this is done, then we should display result. That's why we call display at the end. Usually in a class, it's not like every method has to be called top to bottom. We can call them in any order. But in this program, as each method is dependent on another, we have to follow an order. Okay. So what is that I should do? Call first method. What is the syntax of calling method? That reference name dot method name. So here, what should you do? S dot input data. First, you should call this initialization method. Then S dot add. Just follow syntax. You don't need to do anything. S dot display. You can see here in the list of methods. So this is how we should create a class. with variables and methods. I hope you are following. This is how we should use methods in a class here, friends. So what did we do? We declared variables and then we broke down this into methods like this. So each method is performing some specific task. If it is default method, don't use parentheses here. Creating method is simple, just that method name and then parentheses and then statements. Okay. Okay. Right. So, right. This is simple idea. And before that, you should have that return type void. When you say void, none of these methods are returning any values. I'll show that an example after this. Now run this program. Now you can say the sum is 30. Suppose if you want to print values of A and B as well. So you can just see system.out.println. You can simply add the value of A is plus A. And again the value of B is plus B. Okay. So you can see here now if you run this, we are calling first input data, then add and then display. Okay, friends. So this is you can see here in the output. You are able to see value of A, value of B, and the result and the sum. So this is a quick idea how to create a simple class with variables and methods. Okay, using this is a program to declare class using default methods. Okay, and these methods are not returning anything. Okay, all of you are clear with this? Please test this once. Test this program once, friends. Oh. Is this clear for all of you, friends? All of you are good with this? Any doubts on this? Okay. So this is the idea about what uh, uh, this one default methods. Now let's talk about parameterized methods. Okay. So we can do this. We can try many examples with the defaults. Right. You can see area of a triangle. We are just using a default method here. What we are doing here simply we are declaring area method here and declaring some variables which are needed to calculate area, base and height, and the resultant variable. And we are just applying the logic and printing it. So this is how we create area. For that we created a class triangle and then a test class if you see here. And then what we are doing here, we are creating an object and calling this method. Okay. So this is how we should declare this, what shall we say, simple methods, parameter, I mean default methods in a class. Next one, parameterized method. What is a parameterized method? A method with parameters is known as a parameterized method. For example, the syntax look like this. What is the syntax here? Access modifier, return type, method name, and then variables inside this method. You can see here we have variables in the parentheses. Okay, so this is what we call parameterized method. So what is difference between default and parameterized? If it is parameterized method, we declare parameters in this brackets. Parameters means data types, that variables we declare. How we know how to declare variables? Some data type space var1, data type space var2, something like this. We declare what shall we say? This parameters. So syntax memorize this again. Access modifier, return type, method name. In brackets, just declare this data type, friends. And how to declare that data types? Data type space, that variable one, variable two. That, but this has to be in these brackets. If we declare variables in these brackets, in this parenthesis, we call them as parameters. If you declare them inside a class like this, these are variables. Instance variables, usually we call them. Okay. And here these are called generally, if you declare inside method, we call them local. And here even these are also local to that method. Is this clear for you now? What is difference between default method and parameterized? A method without any parameters. In this parenthesis, no variables, it is default. Parameterized means a method with parameters. In this parenthesis, you can see some variables here. These are this is parameterized method. And syntax, access modifier, return type, method name, and then variables. For example, you can see here some method. We can do this with like this. You can see access is public. Public means it has universal access. We can access them anywhere. And then return type is void. It doesn't return anything. And then this is method name. Method name, it's up to you. It is user defined. You can name anything. And then here we have parameters. Suppose if you want to find sum of two numbers, you should declare two integer variables. You can see here like this. Okay, what we do is let's do a small program to test this. What sum of two numbers. We're using parameterized method. Is this clear to all of you? What is parameterized? A method with parameters is known as a parameterized method. And here, what is that we have? We have access modifier, return type, method name, and then parameters in this parenthesis. That's what it is. Let us see a small example so that we get a clear idea here. Okay, what shall we do now? Let's take an example. Excuse me, friends. So, shall we rewrite the same program? Suppose in this program, if you see here, you see the second program. It's okay. The first method. Okay. Let's rewrite this program to parameterized method. This is default. Now, what is the change we are going to do to this class? These variables, we can keep them as is, no change to this. But let us change this method. Let us change this to parameterized method. What shall I do for this? How many variables should I initialize here? Two variables. So how many parameters do you need depends on Number of variables you should initialize here, or number of values you need to do some operation here. For now, this is an initialization. I should initialize two variables. So how many parameters I need here? I need two parameters. One for initializing A, another for initializing B. So what you do here is that you take two variables here. Actually, this is right approach. When you initialize variables, using a parameterized method is the best recommended way. But anyhow, let us just do this. So how many parameters are needed here, friends? Two parameters. One to initialize A and one to initialize B. Okay. So where should I declare? In this bracket. So what shall I say? Int x, comma, into y. And don't pass any values there. Sorry. Int x, comma, into y. Now initialize x to A, initialize y to B. Okay, now after declaring this variables, what do you do, friends? Initialize this x to A. What do you want? If you want pass this value of x to A as n to x and y to B. So we did a simple initialization by using these parameters. So what did we do now? We declared parameters in the brackets, this parenthesis. How many we declare? Two. Maybe you can ask me, if I declare three, what happens? If you declare three, then nothing happens. You should pass three values while calling. I'll talk about it. But if you don't have utilization, that is unnecessary, right? So how many parameters should we define depends on number of variables you should initialize here, or depends on the number of variables you need in the logic processing. Here we just need to initialize two variables, two parameters are needed. That's all. Again, don't declare three. So declaring additional parameters is not useful for us. Or if you declare less parameters, again you get an error. Okay. So you have to be less in sense. It's not like, suppose if you declare one, only one. Then while calling, if you just pass only one value, nothing happens. Now you assume that you are passing, you need two, but if you declare only one parameter, then while passing, if you pass two, you get an error. I'll show all these use cases. So here I need to just declare two variables and initialize them. That is fine. Declaring anything more is not helpful, is unnecessary for us. Anything less, again, it's not going to be helpful for us. It's not a recommended way. Remember these things. So for anyhow, let's continue, move from here. Is this clear now? How to declare parameterized method? You just name your method and declare how many parameters you want and initialize them to the variables. Okay, then this is same. This doesn't change. Add doesn't change, and displays doesn't change. Now what you do now? But here, once this is done, you are good, right? You took a parameterized method and set values to this variables A and B. Now come here. When you go to the test class here, you created object. But while calling input method, what should we do? We cannot call it like this without, you can see here, it is still calling a default method. But this method is parameterized, sorry. So how many parameters are here? Two. Then while calling this input method, through this method call, this is a method call, right? When you declare a method, if you want to execute that, you should call that method, right? Through this method call, you should pass two values, some 1, comma 2. Now, if you don't see any error here, are you seeing error now? No error, it's gone. Now rest of the program is same, but only thing, this got modified. Excuse me, friends. So this is how this works, friends. So when you have a default parameterized method with how many parameters? Two parameters. Then you should call that method by passing two values. That too, these two values should be of what type? Int type. Because why this parameter here is method is of what type? Int type. Suppose if this value is float, here whatever values you are passing through this method call, this has to be float type. And if these parameters are string, then these values here you are passing has to be string type. So means what? Here there are a couple of points you need to observe here. When you declare a method as parameter with parameterized method, while calling, the values which you are passing should match with the type of this parameters. That is important. Point two. Point two. This is point one. Data types of this calling and this method should match. Data types you are passing through caller and method should match. This is point one. Point two. Number of arguments you are passing should match with number of arguments you declared here. Is it you got it right? Suppose you declare two parameters, but you are passing only one. Then you get an error. You can see here. It won't work. Suppose you are declaring only one parameter here, but you are passing two. Still don't work. So what is the point here? Number of parameters you are passing should match with number of parameters in the method, right? So this is another important rule, friends. Okay, sorry. So this is point two. Point one, type of parameter should match between method call and method. Between the parameters of method call and method, that is point one. Point two, number of parameters should match between this caller and this method. Number three, what is the third one again? What is the third thing? So here another question is, suppose about the type promotions. Suppose if these variables are double, third thing, automatic promotion. So how this happens here? Another important scenario. Third point. Then to this double, you can pass all int type, byte type, short type, char type. It accepts all those. Got it right? So again, widening happens. We can pass all small data types to this double means. So we had discussed this while talking about type conversion. If you pass 1 2 here, these are int type, but still this method is double. It accepts. Are you following, friends? Now, why it's error here? Type mismatch cannot convert from double to int. Earlier, this is so this changed or what? Just a minute. Okay, here the issue is with these variables, not with these parameters. Why these are int, right? Opposite is not possible. Third step three is so when these data types are these are int or convertible types, then automatically we can pass it to this kind of double types. But here this double is a larger one compared to integer, so we get an error. That's why here we are facing it. Suppose if you change this to double, let me just show third scenario. If you change this to double, and if you change this to double, I'm just giving you all details here. Now you can see that error is removed. So what is third point here? Type promotions. How that happens? Type promotions happens as usual, right? Widening is by default automatic promotion is accepted. When automatic promotion happens, for just quick understanding, I told in a while discussing type conversion, smaller data types can be promoted to larger, except there are few cases this statement doesn't work. I told that as well. But larger to smaller is not allowed in majority of the cases. I am not saying 100%, majority I told, because there are few cases where it won't work. So here, these are int. When you pass this to double parameters, they are automatically promoted from int to double. Suppose vice versa. If these are int and if I pass double here, it won't work. So step 3.3, automatic type promotion works with the variables when it is following the that conversion rules. What is that conversion rule? Small data types can be promoted to larger, but larger cannot be promoted to smaller. We had discussed this earlier. This is only just an unofficial statement, not an official statement again. So is this clear now? These are the rules we should follow. When should we follow these rules? What are the rules we should follow? Let me summarize them so that if you have any confusion, it will be clear for all of you. So this I'm just changing to the double. Am I clear or am I confusing you, friends? You are clear with this, right? Or am I confusing all of you? Is this clear? So now this is a quick idea about this one. So what is parameterized method and how to declare parameters and how to initialize variables and then how to use them in the program and what is that, friends? How to pass them with the in the caller, how to pass values in the caller. What are the rules we should follow between a method with parameters and while calling those that method with values? Is this clear for all of you? So let's run this now and then run as Java application. You see here. So the value of A is 1 and you got the same result. I mean, the output is perfect. Got it, friends? So this is about parameterized method. Hope this is clear for all of you. Right. You can test this before we switch to the next topic. So what are the rules we should follow here? I just discussed these rules now. So point one, when you are using parameterized method, simply speaking, so rule one is a number of data type of parameters should match. So that is step point one. Data types of parameters should match. That is one. Second one, number of parameters between both parameters should match. That is step point two. And third thing, so if you see third one, friends, automatic type promotion is allowed among these parameters. So widening is allowed, but narrowing is not allowed. Simply speaking, we had discussed what is widening is allowed among these parameters. But vice versa, narrowing is not allowed automatically. Okay, this is a simple points to remember, friends. Clear for all of you? So what did we do in today's session is we had discussed about all these methods now, how to declare methods, default methods, and then we had discussed about default, and then we had discussed about parameterized, and we see the syntax, and we understood how to use the parameterized methods and how to initialize those values to parameters to this instance variables. And then we also understood the points to follow, points to remember. Like, while when we have a parameterized method and we are calling it, what are the rules we should follow between the caller. This is called caller, method caller, and between the method. So all these are clear for everyone, friends. And other things are simple, friends. We don't have a big issue. Understood now? Is this clear? Anyone has any doubts? If you have doubts, we can discuss. No problem. You can stay back. We'll talk. So, understood now? We will stop here. What we do is tomorrow we'll go ahead with about return type, and then we'll talk about what shall I say, and few more things like and then switch to the other topics like this constructors and then inheritance, all these topics. Okay, that's all for today. If you have any doubts, you can stay back. If you are clear till this what we discussed, we will stop here, friends. Thank you, Shankar. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.